What's going on? Welcome to the Creator Factor podcast, where we talk about the art of content creation, entrepreneurship, and community for our fellow content creators. And if you don't know, I am your host that loves you the most, Ozeal. And today I have a special guest in the building. She's a good, dear friend of mine. Who I've known for quite some time. I want to say about a decade now. We've known each other for a while. We met actually at a local social media event here in my hometown of Houston, Texas. And she's been organizing for the past 15 years. We just celebrated 15 years, and we'll talk a little bit about that. She's the founder of Social Media Breakfast of Houston, where she brings marketers and business leaders and creatives together to exchange ideas and learn all the latest tips and tricks on social media. Also the CEO of Zoetica Media, zoeticamedia.com. She's also co-author of the most amazing marketing book ever. I love that title. She's a keynote speaker. She's an entrepreneur. She's a creator. And one of the most generous community leaders I know. Ladies and gents, Creator Factor fam, let's welcome to the building none other than my good friend, Cammy Huyse in the house. Cammy, what is going on today, my friend?
Ozeal de Bastos, I am going to have to pay you for that introduction.
I'm going to clip it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I got you. You know, well deserved.
Amazing.
I'm excited because, and I know a lot of podcast hosts say, I'm excited for this. This is special because you are a really good friend of mine. As I mentioned, we've met. Is that right? Like about 10 years ago, maybe?
I think it's been.
Was
at
it
least
back
that.
in the Canopy days? About 10
yes,
years?
it was definitely Canopy
Okay.
days. Yes.
So we've known each other for a while. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
long time.
Long time. And we just celebrated 15 years, which, by the way, once again, I want to acknowledge you for 15 years of diligent, dedicated work for the social media community here in Houston, which I was honored to be a part of.
You were.
I want to start here, Cammy, because we've known each other. We run it within the same circles, but I want to know about like early creative Cammy. Like, what's your creator origin story? I don't think I've actually ever heard that before. Share that with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, I have always been a creator. We've talked about this. I'm a musician, and I started a band way back in the olden days, in my 20s. And we called it Drops of Jupiter, which was super fun. And it was a acoustic rock band. And back then I was writing songs. Like I was writing songs and performing my own personal music plus covers. And also learning opera at the same time. I don't know how I got rock band and opera together, but I was
Interesting
in the opera
combination.
program. Yeah, I was in the opera program at George Mason University.
Oh.
And then I eventually went on to sing in the at the time it was called the San Antonio Lyric Opera, which doesn't exist anymore, but I did an entire season with them. But anyway, I'm just saying I've done like a lot of like theater, music, that kind of background. And I think that made me into a creator in all areas of my life. I feel like that music and those kinds of pursuits open up your brain in a different way. That helps you to do that. I also play the violin, which, by the way, is weird because the place for where I sing from is different than in my brain is different from my violin. So like, it's hard for me to think about singing at the same time I'm violining. So it's like, I think I'm using two different parts of my brain. Anyway, the point is that I think that if you can push your brain in different ways of creation, so like paint and do social media management and, do different kinds of pursuits. I feel like that multimodal point of creation helps to let you solve problems in different ways. So that was the beginning, is really just my nature. But how did it come into business? Well, way back in 2002, I got married to my husband, and I was living in Washington, D.C., and he got a job out in San Antonio, Texas, and we moved. So we moved, and I was the director of communications of like I was working for the man, I was working inside. And I always had wanted to be a business owner. And I think it came from my uncle. My uncle has a construction company in Beaumont, Texas, of all places. And I absolutely thought the world of that. I would go at Christmas sometimes and do his 1099s for him. I typed them on an old school typewriter. And I thought, you know, how cool would it be to be able to make your own schedule and do the things you wanted to do and do the kinds of projects you wanted to do. So when I moved to San Antonio, I had a choice. I could either go find a job or maybe finally launch that, you know, consultancy that I've always had thought I'd wanted. And I decided to consult. And it helped that my old boss said, "Hey, can you take this magazine that you've been publishing for us and do it remotely?" So I had one of the first remote jobs ever. Seriously. I did a magazine publishing remotely for a trade association in Washington, D.C. That was my first client. So that started my entrepreneurship. So that's the origin story of that.
Before we get into the entrepreneurship and everything that you're doing with the media company, zoetica.media.com, by the way, again, let's talk about because one of the things that when I was digging Cami, I was like, man, Cami is like an OG, and you were in it early on. I know before we press record, we were talking about you screen days when you were live streaming early on. You were an early adopter there, but coming from a PR world, let's go here. Seeing social media emerge, and I want to know, like, what was the moment when you personally realized that social media was going to be a big player in communication? Because I was watching videos and you were onto this 15 years ago. I mean, you were being interviewed, and so you saw this wave coming, and you were very, like, you understood the importance of being in different platforms, understanding your audience, which we talk about, and being being on the social media platforms where your audience is at. Talk to us a little bit about that. Was there a moment when you were like, okay, coming from PR, this is where it's going to go and this is going to change everything? Talk to us about that, because you are a true pioneer.
Yeah, so that's scary sounding. It makes me feel old, but it's true. So, in
You've earned your
2005,
stripe. You've earned your
I've
stripes.
earned my stripes, see? Shh. In 2005, um, I decided to launch a blog on blogger.com.
Hmm.
Crazy. I was not gonna do a blog about my family or what I ate for breakfast or what I did day to day. I thought that was weird and strange because I came from the PR background, right? So, I was
Hmm.
not gonna talk to you about me. Um, and it was 2005, and I launched the blog, and it was very lonely at first. I just felt like I was writing to the winds of the four winds. I'm sure some of you feel that way now. So you're posting and posting, and like, is anybody really listening to you? It feels like that, right? And so I realized that there was other people that were also blogging about business, and I started to read their blogs. So I found them and I started to make comments on their blogs, really in-depth kind of comments. So back then, what was really valued in the PR and marketing space was um, everybody adding to the conversation. That was the talk. Like, let's add to the conversation. And so
Hmm.
I would go to their blogs and read their stuff and then say, "Have you thought about this? And what about that?" And, wow, I really got a lot of insight out of this and really went deep. And so what happened with that is, because of the way it worked, because of breadcrumbs, when you leave a comment, it leaves a link to
Hmm.
wherever you came from. People would click on me from time to time and see, "Oh, you're blogging too." And I started to get a readership that way.
Hmm.
Really, it was all about community, and so that was, I think, the light bulb that came on for me. And I still will never forget when I got this email. And so at the time, you're going to see how old school this was. I got an email. It was like a reply to all email from. They had added me to a list of bloggers that were talking to each other via email with a reply to all kind
Hmm.
of service. And I was shocked. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can talk to these people offline too." I know that sounds weird now, but at the time I just didn't really understand that, like, oh, these are two different channels, or they're all one. They're all one. And so what blew my mind at the time was, wow, I can only have lunch with like 5 of you per week. Right? I could only have dinner 5 week. And I can't do that either because I got a family and I've got this and I've got that. I'm limited by my hours in the day. And I just realized suddenly that it was a time multiplier for me to make relationships with people, because I was stuck. I was also in San Antonio, and I only could know the people in that town. Well, I was talking with bloggers from all around the world: Ann Hanley, Jay Bear, Shell
Hmm.
Israel at the time, Shell, all the shells. And I'm just saying, Shell Holtz, and all of these different people that were amazing, like amazing, and they lived all over the planet. They were everywhere, and we ended up Jason. Anyway, the people that you would know, like that are considered like OGs, like
The big social
revered,
media. Yeah.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
big people,
I remember
and
those names.
so we were all talking to each other like as peers, but way back then, and supporting each other. And I realized, this is all about community,
Mhm.
and it's all about growing together. And so I took that and I internalized it, and I've used it ever since in everything that I do.
That's really interesting because I have a similar connection to community. And this happened way back in the AOL days, Cami. That back with the AOL chats. And I remember, and I'm not sure if I shared this with this audience, with this podcast before, but I remember going and building. I was in I don't know, it's another thing that I'm not sure if you knew this, but I was heavy into breakdancing. I was a breakdancer back then.
Oh
Did
my
you know
gosh,
I
no, I
was a
didn't know.
professional breakdancer? Yeah, yeah, I was a professional
Oh
breakdancer.
Lord.
Yeah, yeah. See, again, we can share a lot. I think we're creatives that have a lot of hyphens in what we do
Mhm.
in our past. But yeah, I was breakdancing, and I started an AOL chat, and it was all about building. I was connecting with breakdancers from all over the world. So I was meeting b-boys, breakdancers from Japan and Germany, and it was amazing. I had like a chat dedicated for that. And anyways, I do believe, if I have to point back, which I think you just shared, that was like the first time where I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to start connecting with people outside of my circle. And it felt amazing because I was able to get resources and information that others weren't able to. And I was like, I think those were the seeds that were planted early. I'm sure that I can probably go back, but that was when as far as from the online space, I saw the power of like the online communication. So let's switch it up here with
Oh, before
social
you do though,
media.
I want to say
Share
one
with
thing
me.
about
Give it to
AOL.
me.
AOL
Yeah.
chats, just one thing. So AOL, I did not see it so greatly as you did. I did not start a community on AOL, but I was definitely involved in AOL
Mhm.
chats. And so my username on all social media platforms is KAMICHAT, Cami Chat. That was my AOL username.
Scammy chats. I love it.
Cami Chat. Yeah, Cami Chat, one chat.
Love
Yep.
it. Love it. Love it. See, I'm telling you, you knew even back then. You're just smart.
No,
Smart.
you did too. You're
Yeah.
amazing. Like you started a community on AOL. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, I was, and I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, this feels right. So I think, now that you got me thinking, I think that was the kind of like the where I was planting the seeds in regards seeing the power again of community building online. Social media, it's changing. This is something where if anybody wants to learn about the latest social media, I mean, you do a fantastic job not only bringing amazing leaders together here locally, but you put a lot of content, which we'll be sure to link it up in the show notes, your YouTube channel and all your live streams. Fantastic information. You are up to date on all that's happening with social media. Talk to us a little bit about, is there something out there, Cami, that you're like, okay, like enough with all that? Like, is there something that you disagree with that's going on that people are like, yes, I need to follow that? Because I've noticed everybody like will say something, big influencers, and then everybody's doing that. And I'm like, but I'm curious to know, like, is there something that some of these big social media influencers saying that you completely disagree with? Let's go there.
Ooh, counter. That's a good
Counter.
question. What is it that bugs me about social media? I think, yeah, I think it has to do with AI because I am actually an AI enthusiast. So
You
let's just
are.
start there
Hmm.
somewhat. But, and I also feel like this idea of automating everything and expecting
Mm,
the AI to understand and connect with your audience is faulty. Like, I don't think it's going to work because that human touch is so important to that and I've seen it like over and over again,
yeah.
like in community building and what we do.
Yeah.
Like, you reach out to people personally, they respond. You reach out to them in mass, like dear, person, and it never works
Yeah.
because they feel the disconnection. And so how do we take the AI tools, because we're going to need to use them and use them smartly in a way that isn't automated like that, that doesn't take out the humanity in the thing.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll just all of our bots can just talk to each other. and you and I can go to lunch. So our bots can sit here and do this for us, and you and I could maybe go have breakfast because we're meeting early in the morning. But
Mhm.
let's go have breakfast, brunch, and we'll send our bots and have them, do this podcast. No, that does not work because the
Yeah.
people who are listening won't want to hear our bots. They want to hear our experiences. They can't ask me a question like, "What do you disagree with?"
Yeah.
That's
Good
an
point.
opinion.
That's an
That's an
opinion.
opinion. We need opinions, I guess. So what I guess I'm saying is that I think the future of social media is what I call perfectly imperfect.
Mm.
If all the
Break it
content
down.
is perfect, if all the content is perfect because it's made by AI, what's going to stand out now? What's going to stand out is that your spin, your perfectly imperfect spin,
I love that.
human.
Human. Yeah, I think POV, I think is super important. Having a point of view, having a stance in whatever industry you're in. I think you're seeing a lot of people recycle in using AI tools as a replacement for thought leadership, and I think that's kind of going down the rabbit hole of seeing a lot of just false information or just information that's not even authentic, right? Because AI is going to do its thing, but I love the fact that it's important, especially for our audience, Cami. Our audience, we're content creators. We're creators that are building brands and businesses online and offline. So I think it's important for creators who are watching or listening to understand that that AI is here. It's gonna be here to stay. It's gonna continue to influence the way we communicate. But what can we do to not lose that sense of human touch, as you said? Because I think that's going to be important moving forward with AI. Any other thoughts as far as like how do you see AI influencing the social media strategy specifically for content creators in the economy? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I do. So I just watched the other day, somebody put together a video on how to automate with make.com, which is basically like, Zapier or whatever, where they
Mhm.
took, all the way from a link through to like posts. And it's like an automated system, right? So I do believe, but then, I would not want something like that to post without me looking at it first. Now,
Yeah.
I love the idea of the heavy lift, having the heavy lift taken away from me. So, for example, put the link in, have the AI go and summarize the article for you, and then maybe even give you some ideas of what you thinks might be some things you should dig into. But then there has to be a point where you stop it and you add your point of view. Like you said, the POV, right? You add that point of view. So I do think that people will just automatically like post. So we're going to see a lot of that. And so I really think that people are going to trust is going to go down quite a bit. I just
Mm.
don't think people are going to trust the creator anymore. Like, did you make
Mhm.
that? Did you not? For example, the book behind me, in our reviews, which is why I need reviews from people like for this book desperately because and we have had really good reviews, but a couple of people said, "Well, this book was written by AI." And I'm like, "No. I mean, we wrote this book before AI even came out and I mean, it came out, but like ChatGPT wasn't even on the scene when we wrote this book.
Mhm.
So it's not written by AI, but I'm just saying that's going to be what I realize is that's going to be a stock criticism of people. Like
Mm.
you're going to be accused of your content being created by AI at some along the way. That's going to be the new trolling, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's just AI.
Yeah.
It's going to be discounted. So I just feel for creators, we have a big lift ahead of us to maintain trust.
And that book that she's referring to, Cami's referring to, is the most amazing marketing book ever. Right, Cami? Which you
The
can
most amazing marketing book ever.
yeah,
Yeah.
in which you can get on Amazon. And are the reviews? Is that we can make sure we link that up.
Yeah,
We can leave reviews
absolutely.
on Amazon. Is that where? Okay, okay. I want to make sure
Mhm.
we support my friend. Uh,
Thank you.
how are you integrating AI in your creator process?
I actually a lot of ways.
Mm,
I have dug into this because I'm looking at AI for communicators, specifically PR and marketing professionals. Like, how
mhm,
can we use it in a way that is authentic and useful? So I've been speaking about this all over the country. Actually, I went to Icon, which is the PRSA international conference last
Mhm.
year and talked about human-centric AI. So I love that. And even yesterday, I used it to help me write a proposal. So I've set up a system inside of my AI and I've taught it the way I write proposals, what I do. And I kind of don't like writing proposals. I've never loved it. It's like one of those things.
Nobody does. Kelly. I don't think nobody does.
I was wondering, I'm sure somebody does. And if you're
Yeah,
one of
sure.
those
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
people,
You're right.
let me know.
I know,
But
right?
I am definitely not one of those people. And
Yeah.
so somebody says, I'm so excited to get new work. It's like, oh, great. Send me over a proposal. I'm like,
Mm,
okay. So what I've done is I've made a system inside of my AI, instead of ChatGPT in this case, and I'm thinking about turning it into a GPT for myself,
okay.
that I can just throw it in there and train it and do a bunch of stuff. So that's one of them. And I've taught it like, this is what I write. This is how I write it. This is what I get. And it's pretty close. It's pretty close. And I just take it and I clean it up and I put it into the proposal. That is not something where I need to be like the superhuman connect with you.
Right.
The opening paragraph of my proposals, I always write it about them. I
Mhm.
tell them what I see is their problem and why they need to get to fix it, and I sort of agitate at the beginning. So that I have to put a little piece in there. But if
Mhm.
it can give me the outline and then I just have to edit it and add in the pieces that are needed, it can cut down the time of creating a proposal. I've created 2 proposals in the last 2 days.
Mhm.
And usually it would take me like a week to create
Yeah.
one because I
Yeah.
kind of hate it. I think that's why. But I use Newsy, which is as an online tool to create them, which is great because I can have like sections that are already pre-written and I just pull them in.
Okay. Which
So
is
I'm
that?
already
Which is that one, Cami? You said
It's
new.
called Newsy, NUSII
Okay.
.com. It
Okay.
doesn't have AI built inside of it yet,
Okay.
although I'm sure they will put it there someday. I just do the chat GPT and then I put it in here and then I create sections. You can create sections in Newsy that you can put in. So like my contract, that's the legal stuff, that's in there and I just put it in. I put a pricing section and then it has an opening section and I have pre-made a lot of these sections so that I can just so it makes my making of, and that was before AI, right? So I've always automated processes before even AI. So when
Okay.
AI came out, I just saw AI as a
You just
potential to help
10x
me
it, right?
automate
Yeah.
processes. Yes, I
Yeah.
10x automating
Mhm.
processes because I do that anyway. So that's just my style. Is I guess I'm lazy in that way, but I'm also entrepreneurial in that way.
That's smart. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
smart. W I'm curious to know, so you're a mother, you're a wife, you have domestic obligations, and then you have as an entrepreneur, you're running your media company. The balancing act for a lot of content creators could be very challenging, especially for creative entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
and even those that are currently at a day job. Any advice and on just from your personal experience on how creators could do the balancing act of taking care of things at home and also having the capacity to run a business and having a good workflow of creating content that's going to keep you top of mind with your audience. Any advice on that?
Yeah. Did I mention automation?
Can we
um,
talk about the A word again? The
process
other A word? Yeah.
Processes? No, I mean,
Yeah. No, you're
it's
absolutely
definitely
right.
crazy, and I also started a mastermind membership thing this year last couple of years too, called Smart Social Mastery
Okay.
for, PR and marketing professionals, consultants and coaches specifically. So for other entrepreneurs, and so, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but the way I'm balancing it is with, processes, and also, honestly, I have a really good administrative assistant
Mhm.
and I have a team at this point. So I did not, when I got started, I did not. It took me a long time to convince myself to get an admin. And I didn't see, I'm like, can I afford that? What am I going to do with that? So what I did is I actually started to build my administrative assistant into my contracts with my clients. And so I would like have a bucket of hours for that administrative assistant for that client that would be part of the deliverables, right? So I did the strategy and that person would help me with all of the day-to-day things. There's a lot of things. Calendar scheduling.
Yeah.
You've talked to Devana plenty of times. So I have a really great administrative assistant.
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
And she is amazing. But it took me a long time to believe that I could afford that. And guess what? If you just bake it into a couple of your client accounts, and you're always going to mark it up. You have to mark up other people's hours because you have to run the business. And so you mark up those hours, somewhere around 30 to 50%, depending on, and some people do it more. This is just where I'm at. And then guess what? The extra money that you're getting from that is then hours that you can put on other things you want to do with that admin.
Give us some practical, tips on how we can actually automate. Because, one of the things, and I'm going to speak from personal experience, and also I know a lot of creators that struggle. That's a major, that's a huge hurdle, as you know, for creatives, because systems and processes isn't our strength, right? We're a very big vision strategy. That's the way we move, and it's hard to get very nuanced. Our brain just kind of doesn't operate in that way. How were you able to just grapple with your brain to say, okay, this is the process? Like, before we get to automation, as you said, you did a fantastic job of really dialing in your process. Like, is it just simple as creators writing down step by step? Like, can walk us through, like, how can we simplify before we actually automate what we do as
Yes.
creators?
Oh my gosh, that's so important. Standard operating procedures. It's
That's
really
it.
hard for me too. It's really hard for me too. It is. It always has been. But I prioritize it. And
Mm,
so there's a couple of ways I've done this. Some work better than others. And I think AI might be the key for us
okay.
getting this dialed in. Okay.
Okay.
So, first of all, I would sit with somebody and I'd actually pay somebody to watch me do the process and take notes while I did it. Like, we have Zoom. You can open up your screen and
Like an
do the
admin, you're
process.
thinking like an admin,
Yeah.
get an admin. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And have them just watch what you do. Or you can, better yet, record it, screen record it, and let them watch it on their own time. That's the other part too. So just screen record things that you do. So I started to do that. I started to screen record everything I did and put
Mm,
it into, some people use Loomly. I use a thing called searchy.com. Searchy.io actually, I think is what it is. Anyway,
okay.
Searchy. And it is where I store all my videos and all of my stuff. And so I made a training video, but you can even do this on YouTube. You could just make it an unlisted video or private video to yourself and let somebody have access to your account to watch them. So again, you can then take that information and give it to somebody else and let them make it into a process, a standard operating procedure
Hmm.
process. Okay, so AI can also help us with this. And I'll have to find it. But yesterday I saw something that just blew my mind and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I may have to go back and get this." And I saved it to look at later. But what you can do right now is, so the first thing you can do is record a video and then download the video and then transcribe that video. And you can use all kinds of ways to transcribe it. There's even YouTube transcribes it these days, right? On the sidebar. So just transcribe your video, then take the text of that video and put it into a Word doc or a Google Doc or whatever kind of doc thing you use, and upload it into, say, a chat GPT that's free right now. So you can upload it as a document into chat GPT and say, "Hey, can you break down everything I said in this video for transcription?" So again, that means you'd have to talk while you're doing it. So you have to
Hmm.
describe what you're doing as you're doing it on the video. We're like, now I'm opening up this thing. Now I'm doing this. Now I'm doing that. Or you could even use otter.ai,
Yep. Another good tool.
OTTER.ai, and turn it on and just describe to Otter AI what you're doing as you're doing it. And then that's just a text file already. You can upload that directly into ChatGPT. Okay. So you could do that and have it then turn that into a process. Then you just look at it and say, "Okay, is this correct?" If you do the video with it, it's kind of good too, because you can give them the video so they can see
Yeah.
your screen. That's why I kind of
That's
like the
helpful.
video idea.
Me too.
But you have to talk. You can't just do it. You have
Right.
to talk you have to say what
Mhm.
you're doing. The reason I say this is because I try to do this with describing these things to my admins myself, and I found that I'd skip steps that I automatically would just do myself because it just was in my brain that way, and I didn't think of them as steps. I would be like, "Okay, open this, do this." And then I realized it with one of my admins, or one of my employees actually, and she was like, "I what?" She was so confused, and I'm like, "Oh, you have to do this." And she goes, "Well, you didn't say that." So you have to
Mm,
do this. That's why I think turning on a video and just talking through what you're doing as you're doing it, rather
right,
than
right.
trying to remember what you did and tell somebody how to do it. I think a lot
Yeah.
of times we won't turn things over to people because two reasons. Number one, we don't know how to tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
Like we know how to do it. Like I know how to do that, and I'm not trying to tell you how to do it. And number two, I think we won't turn it over to them because we feel like um, maybe we can do it better, and probably we can. But if you don't start turning these things over to somebody else to help you, or at least write them out, um, and do it the same way yourself every time, it's it's going to eventually bite you because you're not it's going to be slow. It's just going to be slow. You're going to be putting it off, you're going to be
And stressful.
procrastinating. It's stressful and slow, and you're going to be procrastinating, and then you're going to be up till 2 o'clock in the morning finishing that thing
Yeah.
because you did not bring other people into the process. So, I'm not saying you have to have other people necessarily,
I think that's a
but
fantastic tip, Cami. I think I love, I mean, creators, I think having, if you don't have a virtual assistant, I know I have a virtual assistant. I don't use her to the max. I know I don't. But I feel like just having somebody there while you're just spitball, you're just sharing, that you're just there on a Zoom call and just have them write notes. Because remember, their brains think differently. So it's for them to document that and then for them to help you create the process. I think that will supercharge and expedite the whole process of actually getting it dialed in where now you can actually look for tools to automate. So I love that tip. Um, I'm gonna have to do that. I'm gonna have to do that ASAP.
it's the way I've actually managed to get through things, and when I don't do it,
Yeah.
it shows. When
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't do it, it shows.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it, Cami. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Before I let you go, we have to, and again, I'm probably gonna have to bring you back because as we talked earlier, I was like, we could talk a lot because y'all listen, Cami, again, she has all the hyphens. I mean, live streaming, live, local events, live events, writing, speaking. We can do a whole
I even did a
another
podcast
episode.
once. We
That's right.
gotta go.
That's right. I forgot. And you're a podcaster. Yeah, you have. I mean, you've been in this space for a long time too. You're an OG. So let's talk a little bit about local events. And you and I, that's one of our common loves. That's something that you and I are both passionate about. Obviously, I started Pod Houston here and Vid Houston, and you've been building the social media breakfast group here. Talk to us a little bit about um, the future of in-person events. Where do you see in-person events moving forward in this day and age where we're seeing, possibly metaverse and more of digital innovations with people kind of gathering together? Where does in-person events offline uh, play?
Yeah, so I think that online events, of course, are amazing too. So don't get me wrong. I love we talked about this is brings us back to the beginning of the conversation of bringing together people from all around
Yeah.
the world and I've done metaverse events too, by the way. I did a metaverse event for a number of years online that, yeah, we had speakers just like social media breakfast.
Mhm.
It was pre-social media breakfast. I did a metaverse event. Not
Wow.
joking. Anyway,
Wow.
we can talk about that, but that was a long time ago.
Pioneer. I'm telling you, she's a pioneer, y'all. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Um, it was great. I loved it so much, back then and now too. Second Life is when we did it in Second
Mm,
Life.
mm, okay. Wow.
Anyway, way back when. So I think in-person events are more important than ever. I
Mm,
know that sounds really weird, but remember I told you perfectly imperfect. Where can you go that you know you're not talking to a bot?
yeah.
There's only one place. There's really only one place. And I think in-person events are so important, but you have to have options. So like for Social Media Breakfast of Houston, on the second Friday of every month, we are going to be at Impact Hub Houston. We are going to be meeting there. And by the way, we're moving, which is really fun
That's
too,
right.
like when you move locations. But Impact Hub Houston is moving, so we're moving with them. But the point is that we always meet exactly at the same time, exactly at the same place. I know some people move it around and go different places, and it's great if you can get a community to move with you like that. But I find it's very confusing for people. They like to go to the same place, they like to know where they're going and show up there. That's really important. Then I also have on the fourth Friday, which you probably don't know, or maybe haven't seen as much or haven't come to, I do a Zoom networking event. And there is a good number of people that come to that thing,
Mhm,
quite a few. And so that's awesome because people that feel like I can't get connected, I couldn't come on the
mhm.
in-person event, but maybe I can make it to the Zoom event this month. So I do a hybrid. And I think it's going to be important to do that hybrid. But again,
Mhm.
the Zoom meeting is a live event, like where they're talking to each other, like face to face.
Mhm.
And I make it as um you can't waste their time. That's the biggest part. You just can't
Mhm.
waste people's time. So you have to think of what is it that is so valuable that they're going to want to show up.
Mhm.
And in this case, it's the networking because they walk away from that with almost every time it's like the universe drops the right people in the room and they're like, "Oh, I can help you with that," or "I can help you with this." And it's crazy how like consistently true that's been. So I just think, showing up ready to connect. I have to just really give you kudos here too. I mean, I had you come and be one of my speakers for the 15th anniversary event last month because you have embodied the spirit of what social media breakfast is about, which is that community building aspect. And I wanted to highlight people that were part of the social media breakfast community but had gone out and also created their own really vibrant
Mhm.
communities. And your community is so vibrant and so amazing.
Thank you.
I love what you've done there. Even when it's hard, you've built,
Mm.
and that's the thing about community building. It's hard sometimes,
Yeah.
guys. People will like suddenly not show up or they won't be there, or you'll be like, what's going on? And you will have some self-doubt. But the truth is the community comes together for each other, not
Yeah.
necessarily you.
Yeah.
So you just keep providing valuable place for people to grow together and they will show up. So I do think that because of AI, because of the way that we're automating everything, I feel like in person and at least in person Zoom, whatever you want to call it, but face to face, people to people events will continue to be really important.
I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring you back so we can geek about, local events and virtual events because I agree with you. I think I mean, it's the now, it's always has been, and I think it's gonna play a major role. And I agree with you as far as the hybrid. I think virtual, although I've never been a huge fan of virtual events, but I do feel that it definitely serves the community in different ways, and we have to realize that's important too. So I love that
Well,
you
and
you
time is really important too there. I just want to
yeah,
say that because, like, for example,
yeah,
your event, my event's in the morning. So some people might be like, I can't come in the morning ever because I have a kid that I have to get
yeah,
to like
that's
school at a
right.
certain time or do certain thing. Like your events are in the afternoons, evenings, and usually I have a kid I have to take somewhere for some kind of
Hmm.
thing, and it takes me like a lot to come out in the evening because I'm further out of town. It's an hour drive in during rush hour. Like it's actually more like an hour and a half if it's rush hour. So it's like I would never be able to come to that event if there wasn't a virtual option. So I like to have both. And I found out during COVID that was really helpful to have like we were doing a one live stream and one Zoom meeting during COVID all through. And that Zoom meeting became pretty important for people because it was a connection piece. But
That's right.
obviously now, there's other options, other choices. But I think, again, the human to human part is really the only place you can do
That's
it.
it. That's it. And I think, that is included in everything what you just said earlier with AI. We talked about the human touch. Never, it's not going to replace the human voice. And now local events and just for connection and community is both in person and virtual. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be human to human. So I love that. Cami, as we land the plane here, I like to finish off the podcast episode asking our guest this one question for our fellow content creators out there that are watching and listening. If there's one creator factor that every creator should learn and master, what would that be?
One creator factor that every creator should learn and master. I would say that is your own personal mindset, your
Mm,
brain.
mm,
So it has nothing to do with creation. It has to do with your brain and how your brain works. One of the best things I've ever done is take a deep dive into learning mindset and brain, um, and how my brain works. And by the way, getting therapy if you need it, whatever it is you need to
yeah,
do to get your brain under control, and master your brain, that's important because as creators, we're very creative even about like what could go wrong. So
so true. So true.
and you have something to give to this world and you need to master that brain of yours so that you can be effective in getting that out to the people
Oh.
that need you. And there's people out there that absolutely 100% need you. And we need you to master your brain.
Zoeticamedia.com, and we're going to make sure that we'll link up Cammie's LinkedIn profile as well. You can connect with Cammie there. She's very active, posting a lot of great content. Of course, if you're in the Houston area, you got to come out to the social media breakfast of Houston. It's by far my favorite local event. I've been attending for quite some time, and you're going to meet so many different creatives from different walks and professionals. So we'll make sure that we link that up along with the book as well. So make sure that we support Cammie and all the authors that were part of that book on Amazon as well. And anything else? Let's see, Cammie. I think that's pretty much it. We covered everything. I want to thank you so much, my friends. I want to thank you so much for, again, being one of the most generous community leaders that I've met, for always extending your offer for me to support you guys and everything you're doing here in our city, and all the work that you're doing. You're a true pioneer, and you're a true inspiration for all of us. And I just want to thank you. And I'm honored. I'm honored to call you a friend. I really am, Cammie. So this podcast episode is long overdue, and I'm just happy that we were able to do it. So thank you, Cammie.
Thanks. You're amazing too, Ozeal. And people know that if they're listening to your podcast, how amazing that you bring all of the information to people that they need and always have such great energy to share. I love that about you as well. So we are community builders together. Twin powers activate. Ready?
We'll leave it at that. Thank you, guys.
Yes.